Hey everybody, Matt Hellman. I am the Director of Cloud for Sustainability at Microsoft, and I want to thank all of you for coming and joining us here today at Microsoft's lead office here in the New York City area. We're super excited to partner with Johnson Controls, Prologis, KPMG, Business Roundtable, and of course to have all of you. So today we've got some pretty exciting panelists here to talk about an important topic for I think many folks here. Certainly something that we're going through at Microsoft, a holistic AI transformation. And so now we're going to take data and AI and really sort of focus the attention towards real estate in the built environment. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce some of our panelists. And our panelists are really going to be focusing today on everything like state of the market, why data and AI are important for real estate, talk about some of the tools and resources available to support organizations with driving and accelerating sustainability transformation. And then we'll sort of wrap it up with bringing it all together. So without further ado, I'm just going to do quick intros. We've got Vijay Sankaran. He's the Chief Technology Officer for Johnson Controls. He reports to the CEO and is a member of the firm's executive committee. In his current role, Vijay leads the technology strategy and global P&L for OpenBlue Digital SaaS business, which is the industry's leading intelligent buildings platform. OpenBlue provides analytical insights, optimization suggestions to its users, leveraging predictive and generative AI. Maureen Waters is the president of Measurabl, which is the world's most widely adopted ESG data platform for real estate, empowering over 1,000 customers across 93 countries, representing more than 18 billion square feet of real estate to measure, manage, report, and act on ESG. Measurabl helps real estate organizations leverage ESG data to drive superior asset value and lower cost of capital, resulting in more profitable real estate. Praveen Chandran is the Sustainability Data and Technology Leader for KPMG. In this role, Praveen co-leads KPMG's climate data and technology practices, which focuses on providing digital strategies, insights, and technology platforms that enable companies to understand their climate risk, measure and prove progress towards their net zero ESG goals, and fund global sequestration efforts. And finally, we've got Ben Myers, who is the Senior Vice President for Sustainability at Boston Properties, which is the largest publicly traded developer, owner, and manager of premier workspaces in the United States. He's responsible for sustainability and ESG strategy, implementation, reporting, stakeholder engagement. So without further ado, I'd love to open up the conversation. Ben, I'd love to start with you. So as the head of sustainability for one of the top real estate firms, investment developers that owns, develops, manages buildings, what are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities that you see around sustainability within real estate?
Sure. Thank you, Matt. So first, I'd like to say that we need to stop thinking about real estate as this homogenous thing, right, as an industry. We need to think more about different asset classes, different regions, different areas of the country. I like the conversation about regulation that came up in the last panel. Also different building vintages and mechanical systems and ownership structures, right, and where there's more of an incentive to decarbonize than not. So I think the biggest challenge is the disparate regulations, the disparate beliefs and tribalism around climate change, and different regions of the country and ownership structures that are causing more fragmentation in an industry that already has a fragmentation problem. That's probably the biggest overarching challenge we face in the real estate industry as a whole. I mean, you've got great companies like Prologis, but we have a huge long tail of the industry that needs to be advancing decarbonization, and they need stronger incentives to do so that don't exist in the marketplace today. I'll speak more specifically for BXP. We own, manage, and acquire and develop commercial real estate. We're vertically integrated. The things that keep me up at night, building performance standard compliance. We have local law 97 here in New York. We've got BERDO in Boston, BEPS in DC, and BUDO in Cambridge. I'm trying to keep up with all these acronyms. In Seattle, we have a new building performance standard. We have the state of California advancing a building performance standard. Fortunately, we don't have property in Denver. I hear that's the most aggressive and draconian building standard out there. So there's a lot of focus on penalizing building owners, and these are existing buildings, for carbon emissions that haven't existed in the past. There was really no regulation or regulatory regime for controlling carbon emissions from existing buildings. Everything was focused on codes and standards for new development. So that's one. Two, embodied carbon. For I'd say the last 5 years, this has been a growing issue of importance. There's more companies like Sublime Cement, for example, that are helping with this issue, and other companies like Boston Metal that are doing great things, concrete and steel respectively, that are coming to market with ultra-low building construction materials. But what can we do with today's solutions that make sense for a development team, construction management team that's trying to achieve certain performance objectives financially on a project, and also performance objectives structurally and from resilience perspective and durability, right? How these materials perform. So getting them comfortable with these new ultra-low materials and really getting that supply chain to develop and mature so we can reliably access these low carbon materials everywhere that we're developing new buildings. So that's the second one. Third, because we have Maureen here, and I know she's going to talk a lot about data as well as our friend here from KPMG, data quality, right? I love hiking in the woods. I do a lot of hiking and camping and backpacking. And I learned from a survivalist this great 3-3-3 rule, right? So you can go 3 minutes without air, you can go 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Data is the air of any successful sustainability program. So we need good data, reliable data. We need people looking at the same data and KPIs to make management decisions that drive decarbonization. And so we'll hear more about how Measurabl is supporting BXP in that effort today. And thank you for having me here on this panel.
Of course, thank you for joining. Vijay, I'd love to turn over to you now. So organizations are having to constantly think about the multiple bottom line. How do we start thinking about all of the regulations that are coming and driving operational excellence and shareholder value and stakeholder value and engaging across all those different priorities? How do you help leadership within Johnson Controls?
It's a great question, Matt, and it's thanks for having me on this panel and as part of this event. I mean, sustainability is one of those things where it also makes excellent business sense. And so if you think about, what we're trying to do, leveraging the data in our OpenBlue platform, across all of our facilities internally as well that, Katie just shared, it's all about really understanding where we have inefficiencies across our entire environment, the way that, we consume energy from different devices, who's actually utilizing our spaces internally, and then how do we really leverage all of that data, in order to drive, improved efficiency across all of our portfolio. And that's a virtuous, practice just in terms of it's good for, the environment in terms of the fact that reduced energy efficiency, reduces the carbon emission and output. It's good for the bottom line that it improves, the ROI and also lets you understand how your facilities are being utilized and make decisions based upon that. It also gives us and our customers a good visibility of, the equipment that's generating all of those emissions and, whether due to the age of that equipment, you have the opportunity to potentially, have a partner like Johnson Controls to help come in and do a retrofit to drive, improved efficiencies and hence reduce your carbon footprint. And so, we are really trying to, eat our own dog food internally in terms of, how we work with our customers to provide smart and sustainable, building solutions. And, by really looking at our own footprint, we're able to really communicate that value proposition to customers as well. As our CEO, George, who's sitting back there, says, it's all about the data at the end of the day. And if you can really, drive and derive the value from the data, it really unlocks some huge opportunities in terms of efficiency and ROI, as well as, best practices around sustainability.
I love it. All about the data. Ben, I'd love to get your perspective on this. I think, how do you ultimately help your leadership focus on investments within sustainability across Boston Properties and some of your investments that you're working on?
Sure. So we try to create a business case by stacking different incentives. So we think about our stakeholders first. What do our clients want in certain markets? What are communities looking for permitting and entitlement, new development like 343 Madison Street here in New York, where we're going to build an all-electric tower, about 950,000 feet. And then what do our investors want? Our largest investor and JV partner happens to be Norges Bank, the sovereign wealth fund from Norway, and they are very bullish on sustainability and ESG, in particular decarbonization. So you have to bring those forces together, and then how can we use local utility rebate programs to incentivize more decarb, and where can we be making investments with the strongest, return on investment? So we've been very successful with lighting projects and VFDs on pumps and motors and chiller plant renovations and different technologies like BMS solutions and overlays to cut our energy use intensity 41% across our portfolio. So we're down 41%, and that saves about $50 million a year in annually recurring energy-related operating expenses. So when I go to our board dedicated committee on sustainability and our full board to talk about why this matters, it's about our stakeholders, what they want from a company like BXP and what they're demanding with their requirements for new space or new development, and also how this is helping us operate more efficiently and control escalating operating expenses to drive higher NOI and returns at the individual asset level. So it's a combination of those two. We use data, again, to do a lot of benchmarking to tease out where the underperforming assets are. One of them happened to be the 2 million square foot GM building here in New York. You may have seen it while you're here visiting, or if you live here in New York, up in Central Park, the iconic GM building. That was one of those energy hogs. When we acquired that building, it had an EUI of 140. That's like a data center EUI today. Maybe not data center, but certainly lab life science. So 140 kBTU per square foot per year at the GM building. We've since brought that down to 70. We've gotten the Energy Star label. It's still very well occupied and operating well, and we've improved indoor air quality at the same time. So we've made the building more comfortable for occupants. We've cut our energy use in half. We have an Energy Star label. We've improved the building energy grade that you may see on buildings when you're walking around New York from, I think, like the lowest grade up to a C and now a B. So we're thrilled with that. And those are the kinds of investments we look for. I mean, that was an investment when you consider local law 97, energy costs that have been escalating in New York, the value of switching from steam to modern electric driveline chillers with Con Ed steam, which is also very expensive. We're going to get like a 4 to 5 year payback period on a major central chiller plant overhaul, Nantum deployment, Measurabl deployment, and it's a great success case that our company is quite proud of, and our president and CEO completely understand.
Yeah. I love it. I'd love to turn now to data. So Maureen, I know you guys are obviously leaders in this space for data, as the foundation, but I think it's super important to hear. We often get so excited about AI and we jump right to all of the capabilities of what AI can do, but we forget that data truly is the foundation and junk in, junk out. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what is the importance from your perspective for why having a strong ESG data estate is really critical for decarbonization in real estate. And then also, what sort of challenges are you seeing in actually collecting and utilizing that data?
Thank you, Matt. Thanks again for having me. Well, as you've heard from everyone already, data is absolutely the foundation, but it is also the most difficult thing we do, right? Which is, collecting, really, curating and cleaning the data and ensuring that it's of highest quality. Because, as you all know, in the era of ChatGPT and Copilot now, and it's bad data. It will get you the wrong results. And so where we start is thinking about it more broadly, where some might start and say, well, we come to Measurabl, we really want to focus in on utility data, and we're saying, well, that's fine. That's all good. That's part of what we do. But more broadly, if you're looking at, your plan for optimization, you really want to look at all of the data points that some of which Ben has already mentioned. But I'll give you a few examples. We have 12 different data points within our quantum data cloud at Measurabl that we look at, continuously for customers, and that is, starting with something as simple as all of the certifications, to physical climate risk data, going deep into all the different areas of climate risk, and then most specifically around some of these capital projects, where you have CapEx and investment in the building, and how that then relates back to the cleansing, not just the cleanliness of the data, but the opportunities you have once you understand that this data is all resides in one data cloud that you can then tap into for opportunities around each of your assets. And so, I'll use one example where, we have in our one of our products called Optimize, Asset Optimization. We have collected over a billion operating hours, of which we utilize to help serve up customers like Ben here for opportunities within their buildings, where they can reduce or make their operating costs more efficient. And so that's a big piece of what we do, Matt. And I would say also that, you have to start with quality data, right? And the data competency is kind of where we start. It's kind of the bottom line from which we build for all of our customers. And in order to have that data quality where it needs to be, we have a lot of tools that we utilize to do that. We have just released a suite of tools, of which we have a data manager that we utilize to not just curate the data for you, but it also helps you on the ingestion on data quality around kind of, are there gaps or anomalies in the data on certain buildings, and helps you really tap into where you might have discrepancies. And so we have the tools. We have the largest collection of ESG data for real estate in the world, and so that gives us a deep level of knowledge from which to base the AI components, which are always important, as we all know. But also we have a diversity of data, but also we have a deep level of data, having collected it for almost 11 years now. And as you heard from Matt, 93 countries, 18 billion square feet, over 110,000 buildings. It's by far the largest ESG data lake in the world. And so I would say that the quality of that data and the ability to tap into it to make the type of AI decisions that we make today, and for us, again, we use machine learning as well as other tools to help us really make that cleaning easier, make the collection easier, and then of course the curation.
Amazing. I'd love, Praveen, to turn to you and hear a little bit about your perspective. So obviously we've heard about sort of state of the market, why data is important from a foundational perspective. But you talk to organizations at every stage of their sustainability transformation journey. I really would be curious to hear, what are some of the motivating factors for organizations as they're starting to pick and choose different technologies to support them on that transformation journey? And perhaps what are some of the challenges to adopting those that you see?
So thanks, and thanks for having me. Thanks for having all of us. I'll start with what Ben said, which is that ultimately it's about the incentives and what your customers and what your investors are looking for. And so a lot of that is going to drive those the opportunities for the operational gains, the customer experience, and even the revenue potential, as you described, right? So data and AI are at the core of that, but you need to have some alignment with what you're trying to accomplish to make use of it, right? So we believe you're going to see more and more, unfortunately, more fragmentation in the sense that you've got data platforms like Measurabl, like OpenBlue. Is data painful? Yes, but I'm confident that it is solvable, right? However, right, what you can't fix the different incentives. You can't fix the fact there are people that want to have the next edge or Shanghai AI tower in the middle of wherever it is, right? It's not feasible, right? So I view this less and less of a data and AI problem. It's more about incentives. It's more about organizational inertia, the alignment, that all the things that factor into the business side of those types of discussions.
Amazing. Vijay, I'd love to hear from you. You guys are leader in building systems and technology, smart buildings. What do you see are sometimes the biggest challenges that stakeholders face and barriers to start adopting some of those technologies? And I'd love to hear any customer examples you guys have of being able to support customers as they're starting to think through adopting some of those technologies.
Well, I won't say it's the data again, because I think that would be a broken record at this point. But I think it is really a fragmentation of a different kind that causes the challenges in the building space to really understand what's going on inside of a building and to drive the efficiency. I mean, if you think about buildings, they have evolved over the last hundreds of years, and they come in different shapes and forms, and you have different ownership structures, people who own large portfolios, people who own global portfolios. And so if you think about the landscape of building technologies, in a single customer, a portfolio could have hundreds or dozens of properties, right? They can all have their own building management system. They can have their own security system. They can have their own fire system. Even within that portfolio, there could be 10 different building management systems, 10 different security systems, and 10 different fire systems, right? Because they've been acquired at different points in time through different ownership structure. And so how do you normalize all of that information and basically bring that together in order to be able to have the customer see a complete view of the portfolio, where faults are happening across your entire building's portfolio, to be able to view that through a digital twin viewership structure, to get the ESG data in one place. I mean, that's a formidable task to wire up that fragmentation. So that's what we've been focused on really heavily, is to have excellence at the edge in terms of being able to connect all of these buildings seamlessly, different types of equipment seamlessly, and normalize the data in a way that it can all be brought up to the cloud, and normalized such that different stakeholders can access that information in different ways. And one of our earliest customers is a company called Capital Land in Asia Pacific that we've been working with for many years. And they're a REIT in Asia Pacific, and they have several hundred properties all across Asia, and they've been buying and selling those properties, and they're using OpenBlue basically to standardize the data across those properties, and being able to look at things like space occupancy and faults, and also use that in order to basically direct cleaning services in different buildings, which buildings are being underutilized, and so how can they potentially dispose of some of those assets and things like that. So it's really about helping connect all of those different types of equipment so they can get a full portfolio view of their assets. And so that's a huge challenge, and that's the one that we're very excited about, because we love buildings. It's our passion, and but it is a formidable challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, I'd love to sort of call back to, I mean, you talked a little bit about, your investment decisions, getting leadership on board. But, when it comes to decarbonization, we have a real challenge around brownfields and greenfields. And I'd love to know how you sort of think about investing in different decarbonization or sustainability strategies as it pertains to either what's built today or what you plan to build in the future.
Yeah, it's much easier to underwrite all this stuff on new development, right?
Yeah.
So where we're building, and really everything we do is urban infill, quote unquote brownfield. I don't love that term, by the way, because there are real brownfield sites that we also
Noted.
Yeah. But so I think of it as like urban infill redevelopment, where we're taking properties, we're upzoning, we're increasing value, and we're doing a lot of sustainability work out of the gate. It's pretty easily underwritten in the markets where we're doing it to fully decarbonize. So we're building 400 units of fully electrified residential in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We have proposed a 312-unit passive house project in Lexington, Massachusetts. We have the building here in New York that I talked about that's fully electrified, shooting for LEED Platinum and a bunch of other accolades. So on new development, I feel like we have the momentum, we have the capital, we have the resources. It's the 50 million square feet of existing buildings that need the love in our portfolio. So that's where I am primarily focused, where our decarbonization efforts are focused. I join the development meetings, but I know those projects are up and on the rails. So one of the things here that I just want to touch on, because this is a data panel and we're talking a lot about data, is we are gathering a lot of information. We're able to get information into the cloud today, unlike ever before, right? But it's very noisy. And so to have a workflow that doesn't overwhelm the chiefs and the regional engineers and alienate them and have them turn it off is critical. And so I see a new position really emerging in the engineering community where you're kind of an IT person, but also a building engineer that understands systems and how buildings operate. There aren't very many people that can do both. And they need to be the point person for a measurable deployment, for example, to help scale how that tool is being used in the field. So we require of all of our chiefs, all of our regionals to attend meetings with Measurabl. We do regional meetings on the asset level basis. We go asset by asset. Then we do quarterly business reviews and technical advisory group meetings so that they have a voice and they're involved. But there are few power users that really drive how we use the tool and make information actionable. And those individuals are so key, whether it's a fault detection platform or a code lab solution or some other solution. You have to have power users that are comfortable with the tech to really get the results. Because something I learned working with someone in the room, Lindsay Baker, years ago when she came to us with Comfy, was that engineers don't want to cede control of mechanical systems to an AI or some robot overlord, or corporate overlord for that matter. Hi, I'm Ben. I'm here from corporate. I'm here to help. Yeah. That's not what they want to do. They want control over temperature set points and ventilation and economize. And certainly a BMS as a traffic cop is a good step towards automation. But these new solutions are different, right? They're taking the BMS layer and they want to do more automation to squeeze out more efficiency. The control, right, of the BMS from an AI solution or a machine learning system is not a step anybody has taken because of that resistance from the engineering community and facilities management. And we need to break through that. And I think it's going to be that individual that kind of spans IT and facilities that appeals to both groups that is going to break through that automation of the AI and machine learning signals to directly control the BMS and not require the intervention or action of an engineer in the field to leverage the savings that are being recommended.
That's one of the bigger
Please, yeah.
That's one of the bigger challenges we see, is getting those people, the IT engineer and the business engineer, and there may be just one person, right, to get them to buy in, the bandwidth and the interest to own that and take advantage of the capabilities that exist.
Happy to train them.
Praveen, I'd love to start to look forward, 10, 15 plus years. Where do you see the role of data and AI playing as it pertains to sustainability in the built environment?
So for us, we view data and AI as there are certain industries where it's just going to completely transform or they go away. I don't see that being the case here. I view data and AI as a potential differentiator. So you may be able to design a building faster, cheaper, that appeals to a broader audience. And we're seeing some of that, right? You may potentially in 10, 15 years be able to integrate with Uber and Amazon and Tesla and have a conveyor belt type system where you're bringing in deliveries in 15, 20 years, right? That would be nice for some group. And maybe in New York it'd be great, right? You don't have a car and Uber's very expensive. If you've got a smart device that's tracking your needs and your consumption, it's integrated with your building and they're integrated with the big tech companies, maybe even you guys, that could be a really nice service that some people or many people are willing to pay for, right? So it's still gonna matter. It's still gonna vary based on your customers, your location, the regulations. But there's a lot of potential to differentiate. The model, however, the physical model for the foreseeable future, right, is what it is.
Yeah. Maureen, I'd love to hear your perspective. So any sort of amazing advancements you've seen in the last year, and perhaps how do you see things evolving over the next 5, 10 plus years?
Thanks, Matt. I would say for us, it's really moving from proxies from a data perspective to performance. And what I mean by that is that, you know, we don't need, you know, we'll get to a point with AI that we don't have to use just the benchmarks, but we actually have the granular level of data that we need to not only make, you know, really informed decisions, but also to really think through, you know, the capital projects when it gets to decarbonization, because, you know, as you move through your sustainability journey, you're hearing from someone that's, you know, in Ben Myers, someone that's been, you know, very, very advanced in one of the topics from a real estate perspective around sustainability in our business. So you're hearing at the very highest of levels what you know, the capabilities. But, you know, I think that there are, you know, depending on where our customers sit on that journey, it is a journey, right? You're moving through, you know, the data competency layer into kind of the reporting and compliance, and then as you move out of that, and you could be in all of them at once, obviously, but there is an entire world of decarbonization that really focus where AI is going to have a huge impact as we start to get to the actual performance data. And I would say on top of that, the most interesting thing for me, you know, as we've just started to see this come to fruition in a release this week around a partnership we announced with FTSE, is around the capital markets side of real estate and and how the data is utilized for green bond issuance, which Ben has also done, to you know, insurance companies using green data, to, you know, we have a large bank sitting across the street here that actually uses our data for green lending. And what does that do? It reduces the cost of capital ultimately to real estate investors, and that's what this is all about at the end of the day. And so I think that's what excites me, and I think we're just starting down that path, and I think we'll be able to move very quickly with AI.
Love it. I'd love to wrap with a quick call to action from each of you. So Vijay, I might start with you. Any key takeaways you would want for the audience to leave here with today as it pertains to data and AI? And
yeah, absolutely. First of all, you know, thanks, Matt, for including us on this panel, and it's been a pleasure to be with my esteemed panelists here. I think, you know, you've heard a lot about the value of data, right? And sometimes it may seem daunting to kind of, you know, dip your toe or, you know, whatever it may, experiment with how you can really leverage the power of that data to really move your sustainability goals forward. And, you know, having now participated in a few events this week, I mean, this is an inflection point that we're at, you know, in terms of, you know, how society needs to really, in the building space, you know, take advantage of that data to make different choices in terms of, you know, either the size of their portfolio, the equipment that's used in the portfolio, or how to comply with local laws and so on and so forth. And so, you know, the call to action, you know, that I would encourage, you know, everyone to think about is, how are you using the data about your facilities in your business to actually drive change? And so, you know, even if it's one facility, you know, I would encourage you to try a digital solution and really, you know, show the value that the data can provide. So I think that would be my one biggest takeaway.
Start small and then see ROI and then scale. I love it.
Exactly.
Maureen.
For me, I think it's really about thinking about it more holistically. Whereas, you know, when you're thinking about, you know, the most common question that we get is where do I start and how do I think about this so that I can get everyone on board internally? And we had a question from a customer this morning on this. And so, you know, the question really back is like the starting point is really like, what are your objectives? What is your real goal that you're setting, whether it's short term or long term? And it really depends again on where you are in that journey, and really setting that up so that we can then help you deliver and execute on your goals, and then, you know, and then building that over time. You don't, again, I agree with Vijay there. You can start small and build to a point where you get to some of these wonderful things that Ben's doing at Boston Properties on the decarbonization. But you can get there and you can achieve your net zero goals one data point at a time.
Praveen.
So what I would say is that, yes, data is hard, Yes, it takes a lot of hard work, but the platforms are getting better every day, and they're good. And again, in our mind, it is solvable. The harder thing are the people and the incentives, right? And that's something, in our view, that has to be done bottoms up, right? Site by site, across a portfolio, you have to have a clear plan, strategy to act and to make the most of the tools that are out there. That's where we would advise focusing. The data and tech, it'll work, it'll get there, right? You can do it.
Yeah. So one thing I'm excited about is there are great companies that are growing and they're becoming more mature that have data and AI solutions. It used to be that real estate companies that were our size would try to build their own bespoke thing internally, and it was impossible to maintain, and it was clunky and expensive to build. And now we can go out and talk with a number of companies and pilot different solutions. And I was told early in my career, Ben, you're going to hear a lot that all the low-hanging fruit's been picked. And I do hear that from a lot of engineers. We've done everything we can do. The thing about low-hanging fruit is it grows back. And I think AI is one of those opportunities where we now have new low-hanging fruit where we can leverage AI to drive this next level of efficiency through BMS 2.0, better controls. So I'm very, very excited about that. And I'll leave you with one thought that an executive in Boston told me also early in my career. He's like, Ben, when you keep scoreboards, people play differently. And I've seen it again and again and again. When you tell people how they're doing, you inspire competition. You can celebrate the winners, and you can shame the laggards, right? So we have to keep scoreboards so people play differently. We can only do that with good, solid data.
I love it.
You can't manage what you don't measure.
That's right.
There it is.
Well, amazing. There we go. Thank you. Round of applause to our amazing panel here. Thank you.